Hi, welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White. I'm your host and founder of the Bobby White Foundation. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have an extremely important show for you to watch tonight, so hold on for a second so we can get some of our business taken care of. First, I want to thank Area 52 Media Group, our producer and Cage behind the scene today, which is really cool. We wouldn't be able to be here and have our show without them. And also our sponsors, Delynn Gaston with the mortgage firm, Anything Mortgages, she's your gal. And right there, don't, if you're looking to buy a home, please, and you really don't know where to begin, please contact her. She's the best of the best. And also to Tammy White Galleries and Custom Framing, one of our newer sponsors. So we're kind of like in the middle of the month. Actually, this is going to air on Valentine's Day. So we have one more support group this month. Newport Richie is Thursday, which my cat is sitting on the calendar. So it is on February 19th at the Oasis Coffee Spot. And then we'll go into March's support groups. So also, as a reminder, we have in Palm Harbor coming up, I think I mentioned it last week, Dr. Alan Wolfelt from the Center for Loss and Life Transition is going to be in Palm Harbor on not on March, I take that back. It's on February 24th. And he's going to be at the North Bay Community Church. It says Clearwater, but it's really closer to Palm Harbor. It's a free event to attend. We have the flyers on. We'll have, if I haven't put them up there, I may not have. Get the flyers up on all our social media. It's free to attend. You just need to call and make reservations. He, to me, is probably the leading grief expert in the United States, and he's well worth going to see if you can see him. And actually, he's also going to be one of our gals from our support group. Let us know that he's going to be in Ocala on the 23rd, so the day before. So if you're further north of us in Tampa Bay, she lives further north, so it's easier for her to go to that one. So she's going to attend the one in Ocala, and then we'll be at the one in Clearwater. So we're excited about that. We've talked about his books quite often through the show through the last several years. So we're excited about that. So today's show it's a show that, just like what we've talked about every week, is very important, and it's something that people don't really like to talk about, and it's human trafficking. So today we have with us Lurlene-Kay Diaz, and she is the executive director of Created Women's. And Created Women's has been in Tampa Bay since 2007. And they serve women impacted by human trafficking and sexual exploitation throughout the Tampa Bay area. As they're a therapeutic recovery program, Created empowers women to claim their lives and rediscover their value, dignity, and purpose through the redeeming love of Christ. Their comprehensive work includes street outreach, drop-in center for women currently being trafficked, and 4 safe houses providing refuge, stability, and long-term healing. So let's bring on Lurleen.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you here. I've been to some human trafficking meetings. There's a gentleman, and I knew I should have known his name. who works with everybody in Tampa Bay. He's come and spoke to our Rotary, which I'm going to try and get him on our show here in the next few weeks so we can kind of reinforce and back what we're going to be talking about today. So, Lurleen, first, tell us how you got into doing what you're doing, because like what we do, our work is very difficult, and we don't usually start doing something like this for if there's a big reason behind it.
Right. So I have been in ministry for 40 years. My husband and I were pastors of a small church outside of New York City, and we had a big youth group. And one of the little girls that came to our youth group was 4 years behind in school. So I became her tutor, just trying to catch her up. And one of the weekends, she said, "Hey, can I stay at your house?" And we often had kids at our house. To get to know them, but also just to minister to their hearts in a more private setting. And so we started noticing really strange behavior. Like at the dinner table, she just kept saying, "Wow, this is so beautiful." And we're like, "Well, don't you do this at your house?" And she's like, "I've never sat at a dinner table before." And then when it was time to go to bed, and we take her to the guest room, she just kept, like patting the bed. And she just said, "This is just so nice." So we started just noticing some things that we were not aware of about her or her situation. And so after the weekend, when we went to take her home, she refused to get out of the car. And I'm like, "You have to tell us what's happening here. We can't just keep you. We have to know what's going on here." So she just said, "But I didn't have to work this weekend." And I'm like, "Well, where do you work?" And she mentioned she works at this little hotel downtown, which we all knew not to be a very good hotel. And I'm thinking, well, what does she do at a hotel? And so she entertained men. And so we turned around and we went back to our house. We called a lawyer that was on our board, and we said we have a situation. We also called DCF, and they were aware of the situation. The school had already reported it. And I'm like, "So what are you going to do about this?" And they said, "There's nothing we can do because in our town, we don't have placement for teenagers except for juvenile detention. And she won't survive juvenile detention." And so I said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And they said, "You can keep her or you can send her home." So we kept her. And the next day, the judge that was on our advisory board signed guardianship over to us. And we ended up living this world that we were very unfamiliar with, even though we worked for a nonprofit that was also a church. And we had worked with vulnerable people for a long time. We had not seen this before. And there was something in my heart that kind of broke. And there were so many things about this story that just were not okay. It was not okay that the school knew. It was not okay that the people who are supposed to protect children didn't have the ability to protect children. It wasn't okay that we couldn't find a doctor who knew how to examine a child. It wasn't okay we couldn't find a therapist that knew how to handle this level of trauma. And so here, pastors that have no training in this kind of trauma have this child, and we don't really know how to help. And I just said to God, someday I have to be part of the solution. I'm weeping now just talking about it because it's not okay. It's not okay that people need help, and help's not readily available. And so over the years, the Lord just kept exposing me to new experiences and opportunities to learn, but also understanding more the world of human trafficking. 30 years when we took this child in, nobody talked about human trafficking. And in fact, it was classified as child abuse. And so we know a lot today. We know a lot about human trafficking. We know a lot about trauma. We know a lot about addiction. And help is available. And I'm just really honored that I get to be part of the solution.
That is just so cool. I mean, I just can't believe the school knew and they couldn't do anything about it. I mean, that's just crazy. Oh man, it blows my mind. Well, as you know, we were talking, before we came on a little bit about what's going on in our area of Tampa Bay, And it this goes to like my first thing I was going to ask you about the hidden realities of human trafficking. How is that, you're going, back 30 years, but okay, we're forward 30 years and there's still the hidden what are the hidden realities in our own community that are still happening?
So 3 years ago, when I first came to create it and started looking at the stats for the country, they said that like in Florida, there were 700 cases. And at Created, we were helping 300 and some women that were being currently trafficked. And I'm like, these numbers can't be correct. And they weren't correct, not because they were using the national hotline, and the national hotline is fabulous. But it did show us that people either were not aware of the national hotline or were not calling the national hotline for help. It wasn't the way that they were seeking help. So last year, the governor put some dollars towards proper research for the state of Florida. And we now know that there are 500,000 victims of human trafficking in the state of Florida. 200,000 of them are being sex trafficked. We also know that right now there's a certification process for all safe houses. Created is certified by the state. And there are only 97 beds currently available in programs specifically designed for survivors of adult human trafficking. As you can see, even though help is available and we know how to help survivors today, we need so much. There's so much more work to do to really tackle this. And we need the community to get involved and say, in our town, in our community, this is not okay. And we need to do something about this.
Yeah, that's even we were talking earlier, our Rotary Club, one of our Rotary clubs in our district helped facilitate the building of another safe house. And you said that Tampa Bay, even though, it's all over our state and as few a beds as we have in our area, we still have the most
Correct.
of
We're
any
more than a
area.
third of the beds in the state. Yeah. Yeah. And Tampa Bay is number 3 in the country for human trafficking. And we have the most sex parlors and massage parlors and places of exploitation than anywhere else in the country. And so, yeah, we need to do a lot more work.
Oh, that is just
Yeah, it's
yeah.
heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
It certainly is. It's just in this day and age, and it just seems to actually kind of like going along with the rates and the lines of suicide as the years have progressed. Instead of getting better and getting more help for people, I mean, we are getting more help for people, but definitely it is not near what we need. But the rates and the incidences and it just continues to go up, you know, uh, it blows my mind. It just does. So, we talked about this earlier too, a little bit, and this is what is so great about your program, but we need to get more people in and get children into programs. Um, I I was mentioning, I was looking at some research and some statistics, but there's really not anything really available per se of what is really truly actually happening to these people in the United States. The only one that sticks in my head that I read, and I could only read so much of it because it is so hard to read, was Cambodia. And this is an issue that is a worldwide issue. And there's statistics and research on other countries. I just couldn't pronounce the countries, but how it is just so prolific. So, and you had mentioned that the children, instead of getting the actual help that they need for their trauma situation, they just get sucked into the foster care system, and um, they don't really get the specialized care that they need to get through this trauma to go on and be able to live a productive life. But if we can, I mean, it's kind of like with survivors of suicide going to just a therapist, a regular therapist that has no training, no issues, is not familiar with suicide loss. How can they help them? And you tell me about when you had spoken to your staff about this, and the difference, what happens before and what happens when they get into, because your program it's not just you go in for a month or 90 days and you're out. Your program, and it's very specific, and it's long, so that it it gives the women the tools that they need to survive and thrive through their horrific ordeal.
Correct. So I talked to the staff yesterday just because I wanted to make sure my information was correct. And I said to them, how much suicide do we see, even when we have not had any situations, but like, do women talk about it? And we do have a plan if somebody is suicidal, it's part of our policy and procedures, and we know how to act on that. And we're not seeing it in the program. But if you talk to the women about life before the program, when they were living a life that was hopeless, when they were living, when they were still working, right? That is where they felt trapped, they felt helpless, they felt that nobody understood, they felt like there was no way out. And that is a recipe for somebody who feels that the only way out is suicide. And so it's actually before they come to Created that they feel that way. We have a survivor who's on our team, and she described coming for help, like at Created, that it's kind of like being on a freight train that is just running, and when you stop to get the help, it is like that freight train suddenly stops and the rest of the train just collides and gets derailed. And suddenly everything that has happened in your life becomes real. So, trafficking and addiction go hand in hand along with mental health. Like, it's all combined because of the level of trauma that has taken place. And oftentimes the trauma starts even before the trafficking, which is how women get trafficked in many cases. They have vulnerabilities that people prey on. And so what we're trying to do is unpack this train. But now, we're asking them to stay sober and clean. That's the first part of the program, is that, we have to be working with somebody who is in the right mind, and somebody who wants to be, free of addiction. But now you don't have anything that's self-medicating you, right? And now you have to deal with all this trauma that has happened in your life. And so what that means is, it means you have to have a safe place that you can unpack that. You have to have a place where other people have had the same experiences. So when you're talking about that, people understand what is happening. You have to have a staff and a community actually around you that is trained to handle the very specific situations that you're dealing with. So we're dealing with addiction, we're dealing with trauma, we're dealing with broken relationships, we're dealing with people who have been unsafe a good portion of their life. And so in human trafficking, the other situation is 81% of people in America that are trafficked by somebody they know, either family or significant other, like a boyfriend. And so now you have, who do I trust? Who is safe? And so they're healing from all these things. And so you really have to have programs that are specialized in this problem, so that they can meet the specialized needs of the people that we're serving.
Wow, that's true. It's That's kind of like what we do with our programs. It's suicide specific. We started out, basically the idea was to help the lost survivors, because that's where things we felt were lacking. But then it reverts into prevention also. And our participants in our support group who have gone to other support groups that were not suicide specific, it makes a difference. You have to have people that understand, what you're going through in order to really be able to really help them. How does your organization is a faith-based organization? So how does the faith-based restoration programs help rebuild these women's identity and hope?
So we're created body, mind, and soul, right? And so if we have women, they have addiction and they have trauma. If we handle just the addiction and then we say, good luck, and then the trauma is going to take them down and the trauma is going to lead them back to addiction. If we handle just the trauma component and not the addiction, like whatever you don't handle is going to take you down. So it's the same that if people are going to get true healing, we have to be healing the body, the mind, and the soul. And also the body is a big component of it. The women, when they come in, they're often very sick. They need a lot of medical care. They need a lot of dental care. And so all these things have to be, handled. And so as a faith-based organization, the very first thing, regardless if we're talking about suicide or human trafficking, is they need a safe place, a place that they can, heal. They need a place where people understand. We don't immediately start preaching the word of God to them. We display that. So we offer a safe place. We serve them by meeting their basic needs. We spend a lot of time listening and just letting them unpack the things that they have to unpack. We help them develop a case plan. We have professionals that do that is specific to their situation. And then just over time, what we're trying to do is bring to light. And I love that's what your mission is too, is things that we're afraid of stay in the darkness. Things that are going to take us down stay in the darkness. So the more we talk about them and bring them to light, it's how we break shame. It's how we break the lies that they're believing about themselves. They believe that my life will never be anything. I'm just a prostitute or whatever the case may be, but that's not truth. That is not what they were created to be. So what we're helping them do is to reveal all those things and then work through those things so that they can become the people that they were created to be.
Man, we need to make a million of you and a million of your organization it's just that's the way. You're right, that's the way you have to do it. A lot of them, well, most of them, just because of the nature of the beast, you have to address that addiction, because like you said, if they don't have their mind right, they're not going to be able to get through the whole rest of the process. And that's what happens, unfortunately, with a lot of suicide victims. And you had mentioned that most that's something that happens to these women prior to coming to a place like yours, because they're in that cycle. And they can't get out of it, and the addiction holds on. And you have to have a clear mind in order to keep moving forward and go through each of those steps, because I can't imagine. I mean, I know what I've had to deal with, but I cannot imagine having to unpack all that, especially after having to be sober, because we had spoke about this, how that addiction helps dull the pain. It helps them not think about
Yeah,
what they're dealing with, and now everything has to come to light.
right.
um it's what can our communities do more to help protect and respond and support our survivors?
So human trafficking is preventable. If there was not a demand, people wouldn't be, there would be no human trafficking. And unfortunately, the demand right now is being driven by social media. Our children are being pursued on social media, and they're doing things in private that their parents may not be aware of. And we also know that with COVID, there's been a lot more isolation, and so we need each other to stay well. Community is always the answer to healing. Community is always the answer to our well-being, because when we get in our heads and we don't have other people speaking truth into our lives, that stuff just swirls around. It becomes very unhealthy. And so we rely really heavily on the community, number one, for financial support. We rely heavily on the community for volunteers. And and volunteer opportunities are really interesting. We have everything from people who go out and do street outreach with us and club outreach, to people that serve the women in the drop-in center, who are women still actively being sold on the street. We serve about 40 women a day at our drop-in center, just meeting their basic needs. They see a case manager. We help them just start the steps of recovery. It takes about 70 to 100 visits before they will accept residential help. So we need volunteers to help with that. We have volunteers who mentor our women. We have volunteers that will come in and just cook dinner with them and have nice conversations with them, come alongside them, so that they know that the community is supporting them. But that also helps them release the shame, because the people that are working with us, they're not bringing shame, they're bringing love, they're bringing understanding, and it's just very healing. So there's so many things the community can do. Yeah.
Well, I just really commend all you guys. So if anybody out there wants to help, go to createdwomen.com. Lurlene, I told you the time would go fast. But I think we covered a lot. I mean, we could cover more. And my cat, he's been doing this for the last 2 shows. I don't understand it. But we're going to get together here sometime soon, because I want you to come up and speak to our Rotary Club also. And just thank you so much for everything that you do in our community.
And thank you for what you're doing. It's so valuable to us. Thank you.
Thanks. So we're going to go to our quote for the day, which is, I'm going to have to pull it up because I can't read it when it's that small. Healing takes courage, and we all have courage, even if we have to dig a little to find it. So remember that. We all sometimes have to dig a little harder. Remember, please keep these numbers in your phone. Memorize it. It's easy. 988. You could be the one to help someone. You just never know. Because like I always say, there is always hope. So thank you, Lurleen. Remember, there's always hope.
Yes.